Hey folks, welcome back to another What's in There video with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at these little guys right here, Spiteclaw's Swarm, a new faction warband expansion for Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire, put out by Games Workshop. Now, in my fervor to get ready to go to Gammon, I wanted to take all my factions with me so I could play it with some people there. I threw the box away and put everything into my core box, so I apologize for that. I usually try to keep everything until I do a video for them, but I kind of brain farted. I'm sorry. But anyway, we're just going to show you what comes in the box so that you can make a better informed decision on whether you're going to add it to your Shadespire collection. So without further ado, let's get down to the table and take a look. And in a box of Spiteclaw's Swarm, you're going to be getting the leader, Scritch Spiteclaw. And he's pretty nasty with that halberd he has going on there, so pretty cool. He's got that real nasty horn on his head too, so that's pretty cool as well. I love the action pose that is here. A great model, lots of detail, going to be fun to paint. Then there's also Kirk, the Almost Trusted, or Kirk. I don't want it to sound like Captain Kirk, but that's what it is. K-R-R-K, the Almost Trusted. I guess it's Spiteclaw's second in command or something to that effect, but interesting. I like him. He has a little pet rat on his shoulder here, so that's all well and good. I guess that's good. And he's a trusted friend. And then you have three models that represent just a lot of different models that are in the swarm, and you will see why that means that in just a few moments. But you have the Festering Skaven here with the little prehensile tail with a dagger on it. I love that. And then there's also the Hungering Skaven that has a pretty nasty little billy club mace there, so that's pretty cool. He also has a shield over here. Let me turn that a little bit so maybe you can see the shield as well. So it's just a really neat model, and I like it a lot. And then there's also the Lurking Skaven with the what I have come to call the trademark Wolverine stance. So it's pretty neat. I like it. He has a lot of really neat detail on him as well. So these models just really knock it out of the park, and I really like the look of them. And so as we take a closer look at some of these characters, first of all, the leader, Scritch Spiteclaw, has a attack profile that he can attack from 2 spaces away. That wicked halberd, he gives him a long reach. He's rolling 2 dice, looking for hammers, and scores 2 damage on a successful attack. Now this is where the strength, I think, of this warband really comes into play. He moves 5. That is a lot of ground to cover on basic. Then he's rolling 1 defense die, looking for evades, and he has 4 hit points. So that's a pretty strong little rat there. Over here, he also starts the game with a special ability with his Wicked Halberd. If you roll at least 1 critical, this attack action also gains cleave. So he's pretty nasty right off the bat. On top of that, he also has another kind of activation that you can use, and it says place a friendly fighter that was taken out of action other than Kirk, the other named Skaven in this warband, and you can place them on any starting hex, but you remove all their wound counters. So that's really interesting, and this is why you have the Festering Skaven, the Hungering Skaven, and the Lurking Skaven that weren't named heroes or characters. They are just representing the different rats that are in this swarm, and they can keep coming back. And then the Inspire trigger here says that a player chooses this fighter when using a ploy. So if this person is the target of a ploy card that you're playing, he immediately becomes inspired, which is pretty interesting because now he still has that killer movement, he still has a good bit of health, he still has all of his good things over here, good upgrades over here, but he's also rolling 2 dice for defense. So that's pretty interesting. And then he also has a warp-infused halberd now. So his halberd gets a little bit more interesting. Instead of just doing 2 damage, he's doing 3 damage now. So again, all of this stays the same with him being able to bring in friendly fighters that have been knocked out, except for Kirk, and then he also gets a little bit stronger here and rolls more defense. So he's a nasty leader. His restricted upgrades are, first of all, Whirling Halberd, and so basically it has a melee attack profile now. He's rolling 2 dice, but he could score 2 damage, and it targets all adjacent fighters, but you have to roll for each. So that's really nasty. And then he also has Flee. You can use this as an action. The fighter and 1 adjacent friendly fighter can make a move action. Both fighters must end their move further away from all enemy fighters. So it's kind of like a tactical retreat almost, but I love the fact that they call it Flee, run away, run away. Now, Scritch and Kirk have a card that they can play that can be put on either of them. This is another one of their restricted upgrade cards, but it is called Skitter Scurry. It's a reaction. After any action that this fighter makes, you can push the fighter 1 hex. So that's a really cool thing as well. Gives them a lot of mobility, and I think that's what you're going to find a lot of in this warband is very high mobility, surgical strikes, and then they're just really hard to take out. Now, Kirk, the almost trusted here, is pretty neat as well. Of course, he has the same Inspire trigger here of if he is the target of a ploy, he will become inspired. He has that killer movement, and yeah, he only has 3 health, but he's still pretty cool as well. He's rolling 2 dice for attack, and he's able to score 2 damage on a successful attack with that warding spear. If he becomes inspired, however, the warding spear stays the same. He rolls 2 dice for defense, though. Again, when they become inspired, they become a little bit harder to hit. So I like that. That's pretty cool. His restricted upgrades, in addition to the Skitter Scurry that he shares with Scritch, he also has Swarm of Rats. And this is another attack profile, which is melee. It rolls 3 dice looking for swords and only scores 1 damage, but it does target all adjacent enemy fighters, and you roll for each of them. So that's really cool too. They can hit multiple people at the same time. And then it says bodyguard for a price. So this is pretty cool here. If Scritch is adjacent to this fighter, Scritch is on guard, even if Scritch has made a charge action this phase. So that's a really cool thing too. And then the first of the generic Skaven that come in this box, and this is the Festering Skaven. Of course, it has the same Inspire trigger as the other ones in the faction. These guys are a little bit weaker, having only 2 hit points, but they're still skittering about at a very rapid race. They have 2 dice for attack, looking for swords, and then they're only scoring 1 damage. But remember, these guys can come back if Scritch activates that action ability. When they become inspired, they're still rolling 3 dice, but look at that. They're still getting 2 dice for defense. So again, having these guys become inspired is really the key to having this warband do well and really picking up the usability of them. Their specific restricted upgrade is Festering Blades. So it looks like it's a blade that has like just nastiness and filth dripping off of it. Basically, on a critical hit, this fighter's attack action with a range of 1 or 2 have +2 damage. So, okay, sure, that doesn't look so bad. This doesn't look so bad either, but when you have the Festering Blades upgrade on these guys, they're rolling 3 dice and they're possibly doing 3 damage. So that's really a nasty combination. And the second of the generic Skaven that are in here are the Hungering Skaven. They have Scavenged Flails, which are melee weapons. They're only rolling 1 die for attack, looking for axes, possibly only scoring 1 damage. They still have that killer movement. They're still pretty weak as far as 2 hit points, and they're only rolling 1 die for defense, looking for evades. But when you upgrade them, now they're rolling 2 dice for that attack, and now they're rolling 2 dice down here for defense. And then on top of that, you can also give them their restricted upgrade, Black Hunger. This fighter's attack action with a range of 1 has +1 damage and targets all adjacent fighters, friend and foe. So you have to be careful with these guys. They're hungry. They're hangry. It says, roll for each fighter. Do not provide support for attack actions against friendly models in attack or defense. So that's a pretty neat thing. These guys are hungry. They're just out for blood. So they'll take any kind of blood or flesh that they can possibly get, whether it is friend or foe. So they're a little dangerous. You want to probably keep them in a corner somewhere, but they can also be pretty nasty. Then you have, finally, the last of the generic Skaven that are in this box. They're called the Lurking Skaven. They have paired Kitars, and they're rolling 2 dice looking for swords, only scoring 1 damage, but they are rolling 2 dice for defense on the offset. They're still getting that killer movement, and they're still a little weak. If you inspire them, they're rolling 3 dice for attack and only scoring 1 hit, possibly, but they also do have a pretty neat upgrade here called Throwing Stars, which gives them a range of 3. They can roll 3 dice. They're still only scoring 1 damage, but they do have that upgraded ability to possibly hit. And then finally, the last restricted upgrade can be used by any of the generic Skaven, the Lurking, Hungering, or Festering Skaven, and it is expendable. As a reaction, during an attack action that will cause any damage to this fighter, you can remove them from the battlefield and deal 1 damage to their attacker. So that's pretty neat as well. You might be taking out 1 rat, but another one's going to bite your hand as you do. So that's pretty cool. I just really like the flow and expendability of this faction. And now we'll take a look at the faction-specific upgrades and ploy cards. There's one more upgrade card that you can have here that is faction-specific, and that is the Sneaky Stab. You can push this fighter 1 hex before they take an attack action, though not when this fighter takes a charge action. So as long as you're just going to have them attack and they're only 1 space away, you can give them this and they can move 1 and then attack, and it's just considered an attack, not a move. So that's pretty cool. Some of the faction-specific ploy cards. First of all, we have here Musk of Fear. Choose a friendly fighter and put them on guard. So it's almost like a sixth sense that something's going on. Here we have one called Momentary Boldness. Choose a fighter, friendly fighter adjacent to 2 or more friendly fighters. That fighter makes a charge action. So that's pretty interesting. You know, he's next to his friends. He's like, yeah, we can do this. Let's do it. So that's pretty funny. Skaven Courage. To play this if there are at least 3 friendly fighters adjacent to the same enemy fighter. One of those friendly fighters can make an attack action. So these are really neat ploy cards. I like them a lot. Here, Nervous Scrabbling. Choose a friendly fighter. They switch places with an adjacent fighter. So that's pretty neat. Aversion to Death. As a reaction, you can play this after an attack action that takes a friendly fighter out of action. Push up to 2 friendly fighters 1 hex each. So that's pretty neat. Sudden Skittering. Double the move. Oh my goodness, double the move characteristic. Remember what the move characteristic for all these guys were. It was 5. So this guy's going to move 10 okay, so double the move characteristic of the first friendly fighter to make a move action in the next activation. They may not make a charge action. Once they have moved, they cannot be activated again this phase. So if you have somebody that's in trouble, or you want to go and make sure you get this objective or what have you, that is the way to do it. 10 hexes in 1 move. That's amazing. Scratching in the Shadow. Ugh, that just makes my skin crawl. Choose an enemy fighter and push them 1 hex. That's pretty cool. Heightened Caution. Roll an extra defense dice for the first friendly fighter to be targeted by an attack action in the next activation. So good. It's just giving you more possibility of defending. The Frenzied Stabbing. The first attack action with a range of 1 or 2, and the next activation gains damage +1. And finally, there are always more. So it says choose 1 enemy fighter that is out of action other than Scritch or Kirk. Remove all wound counters from them and place them on any starting hex. So you can use this ploy card in addition to Scritch's action that he already has. Some of the different faction-specific objective cards. Brilliant, Brilliant. You can score 1 point in the end phase if you scored 2 or more other objective cards in the preceding action phase. Brilliant, Brilliant. And then here it has Numberless Swarm. So you can score this in the 3rd end phase if there are 5 friendly fighters on the battlefield. So if you have 5 currently, not that you lost any of them, but if you currently have 5 on the battlefield, you've brought them back, so to speak, then you can score that as 1 victory point. Live to Fight Another Day. Score this in the 3rd end phase if only the surviving friendly fighter is your leader. And then Leading from the Back. Score this in the 3rd end phase if your leader is in your territory and not adjacent to an enemy. Here it says Arm's Length. Score this immediately if your warband takes an enemy fighter out of action while they are adjacent to none of your fighters. Here, Scritch is the greatest. Yes, yes. Score this immediately if your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. And then in here it says Feast, Feast. Score this in an end phase if all enemy fighters have been taken out of action. All right, so that's pretty cool. And if you're playing with 3 or 4 players, it's all enemy fighters in 2 or more warbands. And then here it says Lives Are Cheap. Score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters were taken out of action in the preceding action phase. So that's pretty cool. And then finally, Honed Survival Instincts. It says score this in an end phase if 1 friendly fighter was taken out of action in the preceding action. So that's a pretty neat group of faction-specific objectives. And then finally, we'll just give you a show of the other generic ploys and upgrades that come in your pack of Spiteclaw's Swarm. And finally, the faction generic objective cards that come in Spiteclaw's Swarm. So that is Spiteclaw's Swarm and everything that you're going to get in that box. I want to make sure you guys absolutely understand, do not, and I repeat, do not underestimate the Skaven in Shadespire. They are quick, and they can hurt, and if they get inspired, they're pretty hard to score some damage on. So they are definitely a contender, but my main purpose here is to simply let you know what comes in the box, and then you can make that final decision on whether or not you're going to purchase it for your collection. So I hope I've accomplished that purpose. Until next time, we'll see you guys on the flip side.